Welcome to Supply Chain Now, the voice of global supply chain. Supply Chain Now focuses on the best in the business for our worldwide audience, the people, the technologies, the best practices, and today's critical issues, the challenges and opportunities. Stay tuned to hear from those making global business happen right here on Supply Chain Now.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Scott Luton and Kevin L. Jackson with you here on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's show. Kevin, how you doing today?
Hey, man, I am doing great. This manufacturing stuff is really getting me hype. and today's guest, I mean, wow, just go to the top, right?
That's right. We booked him through his agent. He pulled him from his rock and roll tour. But you mentioned manufacturing. So, folks, we got a big show here today where we focus on a really interesting intersection of cybersecurity, manufacturing, like Kevin said, but also all in the aviation industry, right? So we're going to be diving into a variety of intriguing topics with a cyber pro on the move, including how the tidal wave of innovative digital transformation has changed the game when it comes to cybersecurity, especially in the manufacturing industry. So, folks, stay tuned for a great conversation here today. Kevin, we're going to promise and deliver here today, right?
Absolutely. I can't wait.
Well, so we should add that today's episode is presented in partnership with our friends at Microsoft, who's doing some pretty cool things in industry, helping to move us all forward successfully. More on that a bit later. But with what we said, let's introduce our featured guest here today. He is the pride of Saxe, Texas, and we'll tell you how to spell that later. Our guest today is an experienced information security professional with a proven track record of supporting organizations ranging from tech startups to Fortune 500 companies to the U.S. Department of Defense. Get this, he's been featured in Top Cyber News Magazine's 2022 list of 40 under 40. He's also a proud veteran of the United States Army, where he served on active duty as a military intelligence analyst. Please join us in welcoming in Thomas Marr, Senior Cyber System Security Engineer at Lockheed Martin. Thomas, how you doing?
Hey, how's it going, Scott? I'm doing great. Proud to be here. Hope you're doing well too.
We're doing wonderful and great to have you.
Hi, Kevin.
Kevin and I. Kevin, we've been looking forward to this conversation, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Lockheed Martin leads the world. It's the world's largest defense manufacturer, I believe.
Well, I'm going to see if y'all know your stuff here in a second, because I pulled some platforms, some iconic platforms that they're responsible for. But before we get there, I got two warm-up questions I want to pose to you, Thomas. The first one, some folks, when they hear Saxe, Texas, which is, I think, your hometown, they may be assuming how it's spelled, but it's not spelled like it sounds. How's it spelled?
It's spelled S-A-C-H-S-E. A lot of people get the name wrong, though. So, and I don't blame them.
Well,
You don't blame him.
I don't blame him either. I had when I first met Thomas and found out where he's from, I Googled it, and I'm like, man, that just doesn't connect. But it's not a really big town either. About how many folks live there, you think, Thomas?
I haven't seen the numbers recently, but I know that it's grown a lot since I grew up there. It's grown rapidly,
wow.
too rapidly, in my opinion, but, is what it is.
And it's part
You
of
don't like that growth, huh?
No, I like having a small town feel. I've been told I'm an old soul in that way, but it is what it is.
It is what it is, but it is also part of Saxe, Texas, part of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, which is some really cool things going on across that metro area. One more quick question for you, Thomas, and Kevin, you're going to kick out of this too. So Thomas is a fellow veteran, as I mentioned in his intro, having served in the Army. I got to ask you, Thomas, because I'm an Air Force veteran. Kevin is a Navy veteran and former naval aviator, so he's the cooler one out of the two of us. But Thomas, what was one of your favorite experiences in the Army as you served in uniform?
Sure. Serving in uniform, particularly as it relates to our discussion topics today, I had the opportunity to serve an honorable mission as a signals intelligence analyst. I never deployed, luckily, but I was able to serve my country from home and take care of my family as well. So I'm proud of my time there. I also had to learn anything that emits a signal I was expected to continuously grow my knowledge of. And for me, that's what started that mindset of continuous growth, which is something that's imperative in this industry, in my opinion. So the
Love it.
continuous learning was, yeah, absolutely. The continuous growth mindset, yeah, I'd say the Army was responsible for that. So I have them to thank for that. In terms of the knowledge that I gained from the Army, there was a lot of overlapping knowledge that allowed me to transition specifically into a cybersecurity focused role.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Whereas I had security related responsibilities beforehand, I was able to get into a more focused role when I transitioned from the military. Non tech related, I'd say being night shift during my time in AIT, because most people are like, night shift, that's terrible, which reasonably so. But that's when all the drill instructors were asleep. So we never got
Oh,
picked
okay.
on.
All right. So
Yeah.
you shared a lot of, we're going to circle back to that because we're going to ask you in a minute how a lot of that background contributed to you landing your current position in just a second. But Kevin, he shared some cool things there. On a serious note, he talked about the power of the continuous learning mindset, which, especially in technology, well, for that matter, if you're in supply chain technology or leadership, it doesn't matter what field you're in. That's really important. And then he talked about kind of tongue in cheek how cool it is to be on night shift where you might got away with a thing or two. Kevin, what'd you hear there from our friend Thomas?
Well, first of all, I'll forgive him for being in the Army. It's okay. The only reason I'm doing that because he's a fellow SIGINTer, right? I did a lot of SIGINT when I was in the Navy. So those are low Earth orbit type of collectors. So I can relate there.
Well, so let me ask y'all. Let's play a little platform trivia here, right?
All right.
I've got three famous, iconic aircraft that Lockheed Martin is responsible for bringing to the world, right? C-130 Hercules, which I think is still the longest military vehicle of any kind in production, like 50 or 60 years, I believe. The
Yeah,
F-16,
continuous.
yeah, continuously produced. That's right, Thomas. You know your stuff now, I can tell. The F-16 Fighting Falcon, right? Incredible, one of the world's most dominant fighters, Air Force platform. And then, of course, more newer, the F-35 Lightning II, which has been deployed across a couple different services. Kevin, out of those, you being the pilot, out of those three, what's your favorite? Out of those three or others from Lockheed Martin?
Well, you may be surprised, but I'm going to say C-130 because the C-130, I flew up in the living room of the C-130, up in the cockpit,
Really?
from the Philippines to Australia. And I was celebrating, and we went to Perth, where I celebrated the 4th of July in the middle of the winter on the beach. So the trip on the C-130 was just a great time in my life. So I'm going to have to say the C-130. And I was in VRC 50. It was a Navy C-130.
Okay. Well, so our listeners and viewers out there, if you're unfamiliar with the C-130, it is it's called a Hercules. It is a cargo aircraft with 4 props, and it is incredibly durable, versatile, and it's got an iconic look to it. You've probably seen it in the past. Thomas, out of those platforms or others, because you got helicopters and then other platforms that the companies are responsible for, what's one of your favorite?
That's a really tough one. I don't think it'd be right to give a preference personally, but I think they're all great. I think they have their own all their own advantages, and I don't think you could go wrong with any of them.
I'm with you.
If
I'm
you
with you.
use them for their intended purpose, of course.
A little disclaimer, important disclaimer. Okay, so let's shift gears a bit here. I'm going to go back to kind of your professional journey before we dive deeper into manufacturing, cybersecurity in the aviation industry. So you were touched on a minute ago about how your background helped contribute to you landing your current position at Lockheed Martin. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah. So one of the things that I learned during my time in service was computer networking. I'd say that's one of the fundamental aspects in cybersecurity in general. That and computer architecture. So yeah, computer architecture, computer networking, and operating systems, I'd say, are the three most fundamental things they need to learn to get a job in tech. I was also fortunate to learn some OSINT. I took an OSINT course whenever I was in the Army, and I learned some exploitation techniques. I think the very first one I learned was SQL injection. So I had a really good time in the Army and learning what was relevant to my current role.
Okay, Kevin, I need your help interpreting everything that Thomas just shared there. You know this. I'm the supply chain guy here. Kevin, what'd you hear there from Thomas?
Well, first of all, from a IT security point of view, looks like he really enjoys getting down in the weeds, right? I hear that he really likes that. Maybe I'm wrong, but he likes that defensive position, trying to protect the network and the applications from attack. Is that what you really enjoy?
Yeah, I definitely would consider myself more of a blue teamer. I'd say your assessment's correct.
Well, so let's keep going. Let's go right down that topic a little bit more. So tell us about your job, whatever you can share, as a senior cyber system security engineer at Lockheed Martin's Skunk Works. Thomas, what do you do?
So, like you said, there's limits as to what I can talk about when it comes to Scott Works. It's one of the most secretive engineering teams in the world. It means I get to do a lot of cool things, and it also means having a security clearance that I'm a lot more accountable than the average citizen. But yeah, what you described, cybersecurity engineering, getting into the weeds, I feel that I can safely describe that without getting in trouble.
That's good because I don't want to get in trouble with any big corporation with an army of attorneys or the U.S.
You know,
government, Thomas.
yeah, but
Uh,
Me neither.
you neither. That's right. Kevin, you're about to say something.
yeah. So Thomas, I mean, Lockheed Martin is aviation, and aviation has really changed a lot. And as a cybersecurity professional, what's your role?
So my role currently at Lockheed Martin is a platform security engineer.
Mhm.
I'd say my responsibilities are relatively broad, but I feel like if I was to describe my role, that'd probably be the best descriptor.
Yeah, that sounds good. And we don't want you to describe any more details, Thomas, because as I mentioned, we got national security factors at play here. But I appreciate what you do. There's an army of folks, and I'm sure y'all have a full plate protecting all that infrastructure from the bad actors out there. And gosh, there's no shortage of them. I want to pose this question to you, Thomas. Kevin and I were talking about this pre-show. How does information technology cybersecurity differ from operational technology cybersecurity? Your thoughts here, Thomas?
Sure. So operational technology, I'll start with that. So operational technology utilizes proprietary software to perform their function autonomously. I'd say the most common example we see is industrial control systems or ICS. Those ICSs deploy SCADA systems using programmable logic controllers to pick up information from sensors and make adjustments accordingly, like temperature or machine productivity. Whereas IT, it uses, operating systems that are more commonly known, like Windows and iOS, and it's more focused on network maintenance and applications and systems testing. So that's where the two differ.
Okay. Kevin, that
Yes, I
makes
was
a lot of sense. I
wondering.
think I think a lot more folks could better understand the difference between IT and OT, especially from a cyber standpoint, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. And as a platform engineer, do you do one more than the other, or is you said your work is broad, or do you sort of straddle the line?
So I would say straddle line. If by straddling the line you mean a little bit of both, I'd say I can
Hmm.
safely say that. Yeah.
Outstanding. Outstanding. All right. So I got to pose this question to you, Thomas. A year or so ago, a study by Dragos, I think I'm saying that right, a manufacturing industry OT cybersecurity company, well, they said that 89%, based on their research, of manufacturers had limited visibility into their operational technology systems, right? Back to the OT, making them easier targets for threat actors and hampering their productivity and efficiency. Thomas, what's your take here? Do you tend to agree with that, with those findings? Your thoughts?
Absolutely. And I was actually able to read that study too. And personally, it doesn't surprise me. To me, that's why sending system and network logs to a centralized monitoring software like a SIM to contextualize information when it comes to security is recommended. And to do that, you need to make sure you keep an inventory to maximize that visibility and know where those logs are coming from.
Interesting. And Kevin, visibility has been the name of the game in so many different ways in recent years. Certainly, supply chain visibility, manufacturing visibility, as it applies to cybersecurity and more. Your thoughts here, Kevin?
Well, first, there may be comes throughout a little acronym there, SAM, which stands for Security Information and Event Management. And this is really tools that help you detect, analyze, and respond to security threats. And this is a very important, critical tool when it comes to cybersecurity, especially in manufacturing. SIM is really mostly used for IT, and there's very few tools that are designed to support OT. And I think that's one reason why you see that great issue in that report.
In terms of the limited visibility, which is a big challenge,
limited visibility,
Kevin. Yeah,
exactly.
Excellent point there. All right, let's talk about another big trend, Thomas, get you to weigh in on. So over the past decade or so, the manufacturing industry has undergone rapid digital transformation. That's Kevin's favorite word. It's starting to be my favorite word. Embracing innovations such as digital twins, robotics, automation, machine learning, artificial intelligence, cloud computing, another one of Kevin's favorites. He wrote the book on that, at least one of them, and the industrial Internet of Things, right? It's an exciting time to be in industry, certainly in manufacturing, and certainly in the aviation industry. But all of those advancements, right, changes the cybersecurity game. Weigh in on what you see and how the threat continues to evolve.
So it may be excited for for that industry, but for cybersecurity, it's extremely stressful. I'll leave with that. So it can both positively and negatively affect cybersecurity. I'll start with the positive.
Okay.
It allows for innovation in the security space. All those buzzwords that you mentioned. However, the stressor part is where business leaders are a bit too eager to push out a new technology without fully understanding the security implications, which results in a lifetime of utilizing bolt-on security instead of addressing an underlying systemic problem beforehand. That's my take.
Yep. So Kevin, not only does it keep cyber professionals up at night, like Thomas was kind of having a little fun with at the beginning as a response, but all of those new technologies, it puts a lot of pressure on the workforce, right? Because going back to that continuous learning mindset, they've got to get up to speed on how to apply it, not just for the sake of applying it, right? But to get the results and to be able to deliver and produce efficiently and successfully, and being able to know how these technologies operate within each other, let alone their companies. And let me just add another challenge, since we're talking about friction points out there, trying to do so in a secure environment, and not just cyber, but we're going to talk about in a minute about supply chain security in a broader sense as well. So Kevin, it's not easy on hardly any of us these days, despite the gains we're making as an industry, huh?
Oh, no, not at all. You think about platforms like the F-35 Lightning and advances like artificial intelligence. I mean, all of the sensors on that platform are leveraging artificial intelligence in order to make sense of the creates, give situational awareness to the pilot and to the battle force. And AI itself is threatened, has cyber threats that have to be protected. And this is even more of a danger when you're operating in denied airspace. So talk about, headaches. Absolutely.
Plenty of them to go around. And it goes without saying too, Thomas and Kevin, and this is obvious, but I think it's worth calling out, that in any technology transformation, of course, the good actors and the folks trying to contribute positively to the world are able to leverage all those things. But unfortunately, the bad actors can apply that same innovative technology to doing bad things, right? It's so intriguing, the cyber world, Thomas, kind of the back and forth as each side starts to get an advantage. Just the evolution of that challenge is just, it's fascinating to me.
Yeah. One thing you'd mentioned the Internet of Things. Well, the industrial Internet of Things is really underpins every activity of the DoD. When you have autonomous vehicles running around, you have drones running around, you have radios that are connected to the internet, or even small sensors out in the field. You have to manage all of that, and you have to protect it against all of the associated cyber threats. So the challenge just multiplies.
Yeah. Every hour, I bet. Sometimes I bet it feels like every minute, Thomas. And, I got,
Millisecond.
that's right. I got to add this too, as you were sharing that, Kevin. I'll tell you, we sure do love our acronyms. IIoT, DOD, OT, IT. Man, it's like a bowl of alphabet soup. All right. So I want to ask you about this, Thomas. And I know this is sensitive, but inquiring minds got to know. A lot of our listeners and viewers and audience members, I bet they've heard of Skunk Works before. I know I have. To Kevin's point earlier at the front end, a legendary, innovative factory, right? I saw some article somewhere that 85% of the work at Skunk Works there at Lockheed Martin is classified and performed in secrecy to protect our national security. So inquiring minds, again, want to know, how does that affect your everyday activities?
Absolutely. Well, to put it succinctly, it means I get to do a lot of cool stuff that I can't talk about. Well, the most important part, having the security clearance and being cognizant of your clearance levels that you're working with, and not just at work either. You're required to maintain a lifestyle that's considerate of our nation's interests. That's more responsibility than the average citizen. So it does affect me day to day, not just at the workplace.
Yeah, one thing also, I would say that Skunkworks has a big target on it. From a security point of view, you have multiple threat actors and nation states trying to break into your environment. So I'm sure that keeps you busy. Maybe that keeps you awake at night.
Yeah, but we have multiple teams that handle their responsibilities well, but absolutely, it's definitely something to be cognizant of, knowing that there's a target on your back because
Yeah.
of the gravity of what you're working with.
That's right. Back in my Air Force days, I did not have a top secret clearance. I think I had a secret clearance, right? But I still remember the OPSEC, the CompuSec, where you placing files. And then, of course, when computers came along, it moved from paper files to floppy disks and stuff. And being mindful of all that, as you said, Thomas, that is an incredible responsibility. And I'm sure in an environment like at Skunk Works, it takes it to a whole new level. Kevin, your last word, because as a naval aviator, I bet you, I'm not sure if you ever visited Skunk Works after you were telling us about your C-130 ride to Perth, Australia. I'll tell you, I knew that the C-130 Hercules had transported plenty of things. I didn't know it had transported Kevin L. Jackson in addition to everything else. You ever visited Skunk Works, Kevin?
I haven't had the opportunity or the pleasure to visit Skunk Works. One of those things you would love to go, but it's hard to get there.
Hard to get in. It's a very, very, it's like the Augusta National or an incredible social club that not many people get in.
Right,
Thomas,
exactly.
you get to wear the green jacket, I guess. All right, let's switch gears here. So aerospace parts, most know, got to meet strict quality standards and tolerances because you got lives are at risk, right? All that requires companies to attain certifications, registrations, and a whole bunch more. It also places a high demand on supply chain security. Of course, any supply chain is only as strong as its weakest link across its ecosystem. So, Thomas, can you share a few thoughts as to how supply chain security is addressed at Lockheed Martin?
So, as a government contractor, Lockheed Martin is required to follow NIST 800-53, which does contain security information regarding supply chain. But as a company, Lockheed Martin himself also has a supply chain risk management team. And the supply chain risk management team enforces a supplier code of conduct regarding all purchase orders made by Lockheed Martin. Other ways that Lockheed Martin addresses supply chain security include recommendations they give on implementing physical security safeguards and an insider threat program.
And it sounds like to me, Kevin, it's a mixture of protocol, policy, probably technology. Of course, the teams deployed to ensure that there's supply chain security across the massive ecosystem that makes up the Lockheed Martin global supply chain community. Your thoughts there, Kevin?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges is managing the IT or network connections between Lockheed Martin and its suppliers. I know that the DoD leverages a system or policies called CMMC, which is a cybersecurity maturity model certification that's required of all DoD contractors and their suppliers. I think that goes a long way towards protecting the cybersecurity of the supply chain or the supply mesh, as I like to call it.
Yes, that's one of your favorite words. It's a great call out too. Allison Krejci Giddens, who leads a aviation manufacturing company and machine shop in the Metro Atlanta area. Kevin, fellow Supply Chain Now co-host here, has become quite the leader in the whole CMMC movement, and especially to your point, how that helps to navigate and govern the defense supply base
Yes.
between the public sector, the private sector, and help protect that whole ecosystem as well. Some interesting discussions that she's been leading there. All right. One other thing to call out, because while Thomas is being a cyber pro, he is a cyber rock and roll star that he is, really focuses, I think, a lot of his efforts around supply chain cybersecurity, right? But supply chain security, goodness gracious, it's not for the faint of heart in a fuller sense, right? Cargo theft is up. Cyber attacks have increased and gotten more complex. Geopolitical threats abound. Goodness gracious. We've got to continue to evolve as an industry and change how supply chain management is done and protected. And thankfully, we've got some smart folks like Thomas and Kevin, the technologists out there, that's helping us to do that in many ways. Kevin, last word before we leave supply chain security and maybe the technology side of that. Last word, and I'm going to talk about the cloud, especially from a manufacturing perspective.
No, I think it's really important to understand that the supply chain also includes your information supply chain. And one of the most vulnerable areas in any supply chain is software. So I'm sure those are who really focuses there. That's something that Thomas and his team focuses on.
No doubt, Thomas. That's a pretty safe hunch, huh?
That's pretty safe hunch indeed.
All right. This is called interviewing someone with a top secret national clearance, folks. There's only certain things we can talk about. Understandably so. Again, we're having a little fun with it, but hey, that's the importance of national security. So let's talk about modern manufacturing data. It's often stored in the cloud, right? But some say aerospace companies are generally discouraged from using cloud storage due to the immense security challenges. Now, I imagine the incredible benefits of cloud technology, I bet that gets his vote too, are too good to pass up. So how do you overcome those security concerns so you can leverage more of the cloud and all the manufacturing that goes on at Lockheed Martin?
Absolutely. So when Lockheed Martin utilizes cloud resources, which they do, I can say that, they use a cyber resiliency level framework that measures their cybersecurity resiliency when utilizing those cloud resources. More specifically, there's four levels. Level one being the least secure, four being the most secure. Consider things like visibility, we were talking about earlier regarding OT and IT and SIM, cyber hygiene, cyber requirements, testing and evaluation, architecture, and information sharing.
Lots of layers of security, right? So kind of what I'm hearing as the ops guy here, so that they can lean in and leverage all the goodness and innovation that the cloud brings and efficiencies and productivity, sharing of information that cloud enables. Kevin, What'd you hear there, and what's important for our listeners and viewers to know?
Well, I think what's important to know is that even in top secret security environments, cloud computing can be safely and securely used. And of those different layers that Thomas mentioned, I think the hardest one is really that cyber hygiene. And you wonder why I picked that out? Because that's where most of the humans fail in their day-to-day cyber hygiene.
That's right. That's right. Because we're human, right? And well, that's a beautiful thing. Hey, we mess up a lot. That's just kind of how it goes. Speaking of cloud, I was reading earlier, Thomas and Kevin, about engineering simulations within the aviation industry. And one cloud provider had taken this simulation practice that usually had taken days and days for human teams to run. But their cloud-based technologies allowed those engineering simulations to take place in a matter of minutes. Man, that makes life a little bit easier for those
Yes.
smart engineers coming up with the next generation of aircraft and designs and all that stuff. All right. So, Thomas, I know that you get invited for interviews and you speak a lot. Of course, you can't share a whole bunch about what you do day in and day out, but I think you do invite folks to connect with you and have conversations, maybe over a nice cup of coffee or you name it. How can folks connect with you there, Thomas?
Absolutely. I'm always happy to have a conversation. I can be found on LinkedIn, and I can also be found on X at CyberTuff, spelled Cyber TUFF.
And you got to, right? If you're a tech pro, you got to come up with a creative spelling of words, right? It's kind of
Yeah,
like
that's like an
sexy,
unspoken rule. Yeah, like that, like that.
it's like sexy Texas, right? SACHSE. So folks, connect with Thomas Marr on LinkedIn, connect with Thomas on X at Cyber Tough, STUFF, and we'll include that in the show notes so it's easier to make that connection. Kevin, I'll tell you what, as a veteran that's always been fascinated and been a big old aircraft nerd, I really enjoyed the conversation we've had here with Thomas, especially, a lot of what I've spent in my time in industry has been in the manufacturing industry, right? It's one of the best parts of global business. But out of everything that Thomas has shared, his personal journey, some of what he does, some of his perspective on cyber issues, especially within manufacturing and the aviation industry, what's been one of your favorite takeaways from this conversation here today?
Well, I mean, one thing that's kind of important to understand is that the challenges that a top secret environment like Skunkworks has is actually no different than the challenges of a regular everyday manufacturer because they are all on the internet. They're all leveraging cloud. They are all leveraging information technology and operational technology in order to deliver better products and services to their chosen industry. So the activities that Lockheed Martin and Skunkworks does, every manufacturer has to focus on. And I think it's broader than you think.
Yeah, well said. I completely agree. And speaking of organizations out there helping to
Mhm.
make all those challenges easier, our friends at Microsoft doing some pretty cool things in the manufacturing industry, huh?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Microsoft is helping us manufacture a sustainable future by unlocking innovations and introducing new products. They really are helping manufacturers embrace new designs and new manufacturing paradigms to prepare for the future of the industrial metaverse. They're creating resilient supply chains to ensure continuity and reduce risk by providing secure, agile, and connected supply chains so you can have always on visibility in your IT environment. And this enables the intelligent factories so that you can automate manufacturing, ensure safe and reliable production, and empower the workforce with the power of industrial IoT, data, and artificial intelligence.
Hey, I love
So,
it.
they're doing a huge amount.
I love, one of our favorite topics to talk about is empowering the workforce, empowering the human element, right? And I love that.
Empowering those humans.
That's
yes.
right. You spike the football on that. And you also use the word paradigm. And one of these days, I'm going to figure out what that means. I'm
I can
not
never
quite.
spell it.
It is three syllables. That's fair.
That's right, Thomas. Well, hey, big thanks to our friends at Microsoft for what they're doing in the industry. And of course, for how they're empowering conversations like this that we had here with Thomas Marr. It's been a pleasure to talk with you, Thomas. Really appreciate what you do. Appreciate your service to the country, your continued service to the country, and of course, what you're doing to protect industry every single day there at Lockheed Martin. So, Thomas Marr, thank you for joining us here today.
It's my pleasure. Rangers lead the way.
That's right. Every day, every day. Hey, Kevin, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you how folks can connect with you. Also, how they can connect with the Digital Transformers podcast, which is on the move. How can they track you down?
Yeah, absolutely. You can always catch me at Supply Chain Now at Digital Transformers. And I'm on LinkedIn and on the big X, Kevin_Jackson. Reach out anytime.
Love it. Kevin, appreciate what you're doing at Digital Transformers. Always a pleasure to knock out shows like this with you, Kevin. Already looking forward to the next one.
Me too. Thanks.
Speaking of thanks, big thanks to all of our listeners and viewers across the globe. Thanks for all of your feedback, your show ideas. Keep it coming. We really appreciate that. Big thanks to Thomas Marr with Lockheed Martin. Thomas, thanks for what you do. Thanks for serving the country, serving the industry, and continuing to lead the charge to protect our global supply chains out there. Appreciate you being here, Thomas.
Thank you. It's an honor.
You bet. Big thanks one last time to our Cloud partners over at Microsoft as well, helping us bring these wonderful conversations and people and leaders and ideas to our global audience. So, folks, hopefully you enjoyed this episode as much as I have. Whatever you do, your homework's one thing. You got to take one idea, one best practice that Thomas or Kevin shared here today, put it into practice. Your teams are ready to do business differently. And gosh, we got to stand and deliver and help them make that happen. So with all that said, on behalf of the Supply Chain Now team, Scott Luton challenge you, do good, give forward, be the change that's needed. And we'll see you next time, right back here at Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for being a part of our Supply Chain Now community. Check out all of our programming at supplychainnow.com and make sure you subscribe to Supply Chain Now anywhere you listen to podcasts. And follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. See you next time on Supply Chain Now.